quick backstory on this particular video here. I spent the past 2 months recording a course, but I ended up trashing it. Why? Because it was too long and unnecessarily complex. And that is something that I do not want to represent on this YouTube channel and generally with LotusTunes. I want to show how simple and fun it is to make music. After recording about 8 hours of material, I ended up choosing just the first part of it, which is me creating the groove from scratch. So what you're about to see is basically the first hour of the course. One of the reasons why I think I screwed up is because I was too focused on I need to provide value with whatever I say. And that completely messed up my flow. So that's another lesson for me. This is just something that I feel like I face as a creator, knowing to find my authentic voice. And I realize I produce my best tracks whenever I'm not thinking about whether there's a camera on or not. But that's kind of a challenge because there's a camera on. Again, I'm pretty happy with this first part of the course, the first hour. I think there's a ton of value in this. So without further ado, let's dive in. Okay, let's start off by creating a MIDI track. And in this MIDI track, we're going to load up a drum rack. Drum rack device, and I'm going to start by choosing a few kicks. So let's type in kick and go into one shots, kicks. You can also take all the kicks, just shift select all of them and drag and drop them into your drum rack. Then you have them all loaded up so you can flexibly switch them around. And I'm going to repeat the process a couple times. So I'm just going to create a couple of MIDI tracks, Command Shift T, and load up a drum rack in each one of them. So drum rack, there you go. Could also create one with the drum rack on top and then just duplicate it, hitting Command D. So we'll call this one kick. This one's going to be hats. This one's going to be claps. This is going to be percussion high, percussion low, and then the toms. These are the core drums is what I like to call them. And in each of these MIDI tracks, we're going to load up one-shots, sample one-shots. So again, let's go back into Prog Organica, hats. Just going to take all of these and put them in here. Of course, you could take your time when selecting these sounds. You could individually go through folders. What I sometimes do is go into the all folder, type in hat, and this gives you slightly more varied results because you get results from different packs. Also, you can filter by loops and one-shots. Now we're going to load up some claps onto the clap layer. So we can type in clap over here, go into one-shots, claps. Same thing, just drag them all into the drum rack. Percussion high. Yeah, okay, we can delete the selection here, the search. So we can drag in all the elements into the drum rack, go into percussion low. Select some low percussion. Again, you can take your time to select individual sounds, but I already know these sounds. I know they work, so I'm just going to drag them in. And one more for the toms. It's going to be the more low-end subby stuff. All right, so we got our core drums. Now we just need to program the MIDI. By the way, I'm working with the tempo of 122. I find this is a quite flexible BPM, meaning that you can still change it higher or lower and not lose the essence or the quality of the sound. So I chose to bounce all the stems and loops as 122 for this particular pack, Prog Organica. So we'll stick with 122 and we'll start with the kick. So in this first cell, we're going to double click and make sure that we're working in a 4x4 grid. So we'll select that here. You can also go right click 4x4 and you can select any kick. You can start with the first one and we're going to create a 4-bar loop here. Duplicate, 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 duplicate. So now we have a 4-bar loop and we can create some variation. So let's go into a finer grid, 8th notes, maybe create a few variations this way. Hit play. Okay, let's not do that for the very first section here. Let's maybe do it in the second half this way. And then maybe add a double kick here with the second kick having a lower velocity. You can change the velocity down here or hit Command and drag it down. So you have a bit of a kick variation inside the MIDI here already, rather than having just a static 4x4 groove. Perfect, okay. I'm gonna remove the low cut that I have by default. We don't want any of these effects. And set the kick to like -10 dB is a good starting point. Okay, now let's go for a hi-hat. Go for eighth notes because the hi-hat plays on every second eighth note. So again, I just double click to create one of these cells. And you can start with one hi-hat and then add along the way. Let's hit play. And for hi-hats, what we can do is just loop this section over here, hitting Command L. So these are 2 eighth notes. Yeah, hi-hat plays on every second eighth note. And then you can start adding on top, or you can just see what fits. I like these two, maybe add another one. Yeah, perfect. Now let's add a clap. So double click one of these cells in the clap layer. Clap plays on every second fourth note. So let's go back into fourth and place the claps accordingly. Hit play. This already sounds nice. Hit Option and drag. So we create another clap. Maybe another one. Okay, let's loop this. Command L. Sometimes you can also pre-shift the claps by just a slight bit. So you get that slap effect, that sweep in slap effect. What you can do sometimes is extend the loop. So now we have a total of 1 bar, as you can see here. And for the second clap, we're going to take the first bar, duplicate it. For the second clap, we can add an emphasis, something that has a bit of reverb on it. So we get a bit of variation in the sound. Dial it down a bit. Awesome. Maybe dial down the hi-hats too. Now we're going to come up with a percussion groove. So on this perc high channel, you can double click the first cell. And I usually like starting off with some type of a conga rhythm. And you can tell that the samples suddenly cut off. That's because the samples are in classic mode. If you change it to one shot, they play to the very end, no matter how long the MIDI note is over here. You can see these two are playing. If we change it to one shot mode, we get that reverb tail. If we change it to classic back, they cut off instantly. So that's up to you in which mode you'd like to keep them in. I feel like one shot mode is also great because you get to see this blue fade out slider as well. It's a bit more visual. With classic, you have to just trust your ears a bit more. I usually just tweak sustain and decay. Yeah, let's keep it on one shot. Now just find the groove that you feel like suits you. Yeah, this is good. Maybe duplicate it once more. Yeah. So we got some congas here and some bongos over here. Now you can extend the loop to, I would say, 4 bars, because this enables you to have a call and response. So this would be our call. This would be our response. And we're going to copy our call over here again. And then we can come up with a new response phrase. So for the response phrase, let's maybe just chuck in a few different percussions here. It doesn't really matter. Just sometimes it's just worth to click around and see what kind of sounds good and start removing. So let's try that out. I kind of like this percussion here, this clave. So let's play this a few times over here. Maybe just twice. See? So this is our phrase B. Copy with Command C and paste with Command V. Make sure that you always stay within this grid. Yeah. So right now I selected an entire bar over here. 1, 2, 3, 4 bars. And maybe we can add some variation at the very end by deleting the last note. This note, percussion number 13, I'd like to have it played to the very end. This one, so I put it into one-shot mode. Now let's add some additional column response phrasing using the percussion low. So click twice in the first cell over here. Let's see if we can add some value to our existing groove. Let's change the length to 4 bars. 4, there we go. And hit play. So again, let's start off with some kind of a conga phrase, preferably. Or something more experimental, let's see. See, duplicate that. And something here. Yeah. Yeah, give the groove a bit more space here. Copy this, paste it over here. So bar 1 is the call. Bar 3 is also the call. 2 and 4 is our response. Oh hey, oh hey. Got another conga here. It's clashing with the other percussion, so let's move this. So yeah. Be very meticulous with how you place them. Like, how does it sound to your ear? Sounds good, fits well. Copy this, paste it over. And again, for variation's sake, we can just delete the last note. Okay, maybe we do need something at the very end. Something that makes it stand out. Let's see how this sounds. Okay, this is a bit too synthetic and tonal. Let's select something else. So with arrow up and down, you can switch the notes here. That's good. I like that. However, I do want to change the velocity so it kind of builds towards the end, yeah? So it's like whoop, up, up. Yeah. Nice. Okay, let's just dial these down a bit. And then the final percussion layer is the tom, or the sub bass layer. So we double click to create a clip. And you can already hit play and just draw in your tom groove. So this is more of like the sub. It's almost like an actual sub bass. Let's do the same. Let's just set it to 4 bars. I feel like 4 bars is a good framework to always work with when it comes to MIDI and percussion and toms and stuff like that. See, it already sounds very full just using like this framework over here. Let's add a few more. Yeah, we do want to pay attention that it doesn't mess up our groove. So let's keep on searching. Maybe we allow the groove to breathe here in this section because there's already so much percussion. Yeah, this is nice placement over here. You can see what grid mode I'm in right here, 16th. So I'm working in a really fine grid here. Where do we want to place them? I like it. We got a bit of a groove going already. Let's duplicate this first bar over here. This is our first bar. You know what? This is going to be a simplified version of phrase A. So I assume, or I would call this one phrase A. This is B. Let's copy phrase A. Just copy it and paste it here, starting as of bar 3. Yeah, and then we can just paste this last note to the very end. Maybe add something else here. So instead of this note playing here, you can have a different note. Good. So this would be the core groove. Let's group all of the tops into one channel. We're going to Command G or Control G to create a group, and we're going to call this one tops. So all the high-end type stuff, let's right-click, give it a slightly different color. So percussion, hats, claps, all that kind of stuff that goes into here. Toms, I would consider to be already in the sub register, and we don't want to process the high end with the sub together. So let's keep those separate for now. Alrighty mighty. Now I'm going to create a shaker channel, and therefore I'm going to click on the last track within the group and hit Command T to create an audio track. And for shakers, honestly, I love to resort to samples, using samples because it's just the quickest way to A/B test which one or which type of groove suits the existing groove that you have here the most. So let's go into the kits and type in shaker. And you can see that all of these individual kits have one shaker groove. What you can do is just drag and drop individual shaker loops that you find to sound nice. Sometimes you can also just type in shaker, go into all, and search for loop. And you get a ton of different shaker loops. Some sound weird, some sound okay. Alternatively, you can go on services like Loopmasters, Splice, like shaker loops are all around the internet. I just put together my favorite ones into this particular sound pack. So let's keep on just putting these here. I'll give you some recommendations for shakers in a second, but just to illustrate how this workflow works, I'll just take a few here. This one's nice, yeah. Dial them down to the very bottom here. Hit play on the first clip, for example, and then you dial it in. And then you hit play on other grooves. And pay attention to what sounds the best. So this one has some percussion in it. Slow cut it a bit. This one's very subtle. Keep on going. This one's very static, like on the grid. I like this one. This one fills out the groove a lot. So number 10. Okay. 15 and 10 I like the most. So what you can do is duplicate this channel. I'm going to delete everything besides number 15 on this track. And on this track, I'm going to delete everything besides 10. I'm just going to delete them here, put them at the very top. So I want these two to play simultaneously. However, I do want some separation between them. So I'm going to pan one to the left. Doesn't need to be all the way. And one to the right, as you can see here, using this pan slider. And then we hit play on the entire row here. So every clip starts at the same time. Yeah, see? That was nice. You can kind of mix according to taste. Yeah, and regarding shaker loops, honestly, when I create shaker loops, I use a combination of samples and VSTs. My favorite VST for shakers, by far, and you've probably seen me use this in a few videos of mine, is called Shimmer, Shake, and Strike. Company's name is In Session Audio. The first time I encountered this particular library was when I watched one of Tim Green's videos. He has like an interview where he showed the individual elements that he used in his track Vacation to Life, where his shaker groove is very, very present. And I thought, oh, that's a nice little tip. And I grabbed it, and I'm very satisfied with how it sounds. First thing I do when I open up the plugin is I crank down the delay and reverb because I don't like it. And I create a clip by double clicking into a cell, and I find the loops. So you see you get a ton of one shots up here in this range. The loops are somewhere down here, and each loop has a different accentuation, a different play style. 1 bar should be enough. Legato, hit play. So if you wanted to, you could also add this as like a third layer. Generally, for organic house, what I find to be useful is layering, especially when it comes to hi-hats and claps. You saw me do that previously here on the clap and hi-hats. I use multiple samples. Now, you don't need to do this, of course, but I find it just helps to give a slightly fuller sound, to layer a variety of different samples with each other. Maybe just pan them to the left, pre-shift them slightly, you know? So layering does help a lot. However, you can go overboard with this, yeah? Pay attention to when you are layering sounds that you still have a clear and defined groove, that percussion elements, for example, don't overlap and cause the groove to feel inconsistent. You still want that call and response type phrasing, yeah? The percussion is melodic here. Pay attention to it. Ba-da-da-da-do. Ba-da-da. That's call and response, and we already have that in the percussion, so our percussion is hooky. It has something to remember. And what I love about this Contact plugin is that you can change the pattern similar to a step sequencer, but it still sounds very organic. It doesn't sound like a step sequencer. You can blend out certain steps here by dragging it to the very bottom or crank them up. You can pan individual layers, like this one is like a maraca that's panned to the right. This one is a egg shaker panned to the left, and you got some tambourines in the middle. You can also double click or click these individual layers and select different organic percussion. Yeah, see, and get different variations. I mean, this is gold. This is actual gold for organic house producers. So what you could do is also keep this here and put an auto pan preferably on it. So auto pan is a nice audio effect that I use for at least a bit of movement in the stereo field. Crank up the amount, maybe a bit less rate. And what we can do is just right click, freeze, and flatten this track. So what happens is that we now have rendered that to audio. And this again gives us the opportunity to pitch it up or down. Sometimes if you pitch up these shaker loops by like 10, 12 halftone steps, you sometimes get very textural results, as you can see here. This also depends highly on which warp mode you're on. Beats with this mode gives you very glitchy results. Beats with forward transient gives you very static results. But again, this is something that I like using. Yeah. A track that comes to my mind right now is Tim Green's Sea Parade. I think it's called Sea Parade. You can hear in the top loop, there's like a top loop that is very textural, very, very textural. And I think he achieved it by a similar strategy. Yeah, you could also duplicate this layer here, the Contact 7 layer. We're going to call it Shaker OG for organic. And we'll call it plus because we know that it's pitched up. And this one is the main layer. We can also just double click the pitch so we reset it to the original value. By the way, Shift and Tab is a command that I frequently use to close down this panel. And you can see that it just switches between the two here. So yeah. Just mix it in a bit here like this. And put these shakers into our group, our tops group. So if we solo this now, look how much the shakers are doing. You see, we're layering, but it doesn't, none of these layers take away from the groove. Every individual layer builds it, and that's what you want to pay attention to. For shakers, I'm going to be honest, there's a lot less call and response than in percussion. But still, you just want to make sure that you don't go too overboard with shakers. That's why I always say mix them from the bottom up. Always start from minus infinity and then slowly mix upward. This way you get a better feel for the shakers. Yeah. Awesome. Make sure all of these have the same color. Assign track to color clips. And we're going to rename this clip into shaker pitched and rename this one to shaker normal. Another shaker plugin that I like using is by a company called Clev Grand. It's called Skaka. And it's similar to Contact 7, the Shimmer Shake and Strike library. However, this is VST based, so you don't need Contact for it to work. It's also a very nice library because it includes percussion in a drum rack type style. So you can select a certain loop like this, hit play. So this one is F. Let's go for our G sharp, which is the calabash. Where is it? You could also layer this, piano. Or you could select a different instrument like the OK ball. Okie ball. Fantastic, dude. That's layering. And the cool thing is that you also get to pan these over here. So if you're on a slightly tighter budget, I forgot how much this one costs. You could also grab this. Also draw in individual shakers like this. Or you could also click on these individual panels and change the placement. I'm just touching stuff here. Duration, pitch, and gain. So it's very versatile as well. Weird, isn't it? Yeah. I'm gonna delete this layer though, because I feel like already we have enough shakers. Ting is another another great tool by them. Same company, but it's more based on Foley percussion. And you get also a variety of this different kitchen Foley type stuff. So this could also be great if you're into Afro house and you like those. Yeah, fork on plate, for example, is a really nice sound. F sharp. You can go into F sharp and draw yourself a little cymbal groove here, which is very usual for Afro house. Yeah, but I'm gonna delete the ting layer because I don't feel like I need it in this track. I also feel like the kick is a bit loud, so what I usually do to combat that is I just pull it down to minus infinity. And I like doing this in this particular stage when I'm still coming up with the main idea, because it's kind of weird if you're already arranging the track, you're almost finished with it, and then you realize my kick is too loud. So I would recommend that you mix the kick at the proper level, preferably at the start of your track or early on in the creation stage of your track. So let's just hit play. Again, I pulled it down to minus infinity here. And you pull it up until you feel like it sits quite well in the mix. You can exaggerate. Pull it down a bit. And if you have a pair of speakers, then this might make sense to turn on the speakers instead of just the headphones, because it gives you a different sound, it gives you a different feeling. And suddenly you realize, oh, okay, the kick sounds good, even though it's at a way quieter volume. Like it doesn't overpower the mix as much. So just pulling down elements to -infinity and mixing them upward gives you a better feeling for the sound, where it should sit in the mix. I'll do the same for the claps. Fine. Maybe 1 or 2 dB less on the kick. Arrow down. 1 dB. Perfect. Since we have the core groove established and it sounds solid, whatever we add now on top will just be complementary. And if you spend enough time on what we just did here, it won't really matter as much what you add as of now, because you already have the foundation, which is solid, which is the kick, hi-hat, clap, percussion, toms, the additional shakers that we pan to the left and right. That's the essence, that's the core. So whatever comes now just adds detail, adds fidelity to the groove. What I do, honestly, is I just start off by using samples. So I create an audio track, and in that audio track, I drag in percussion. So I'll type in perc, and I'll just drag a variety of different loops just to get a feeling for what suits my groove. So again, I'll just drag and drop a variety of different loops. Some you can see sound acoustic, some more organic, like conga and bongo type percussion. I'll just continue to drag these percussions here like this. I'll show you a few alternate ways, but this is just my favorite one because it takes away all the pressure, all the need to have to create something original out of thin air. So I'll just take a few more. And now you dial it down to -infinity, hit play on the first clip at the top, and you mix it up. This one sounds good. There's a lot of toms, a lot of swing on this one. I feel like this one is a bit too much because we already have so much congas going on. Nope, doesn't fit. This one gives it some high end. Yeah, we can keep that actually. It adds to the shaker groove. So I'll duplicate the entire track here, hitting Command D. I'll delete everything besides the clip that is playing because I like it. I'll pull it to the very top. I'll call it Fidelity. And then I'll hit play on the next track over here. Interesting, but it's very aggressive. Continue. Even though these are congas, I still feel like they sound good. But let's keep on going. Let's see what else we got. This is good, but let's keep on going. Congas and bongos, man, they always work. This one's more synthetic. Keep on going, keep on going. This one. It just sounds the most interesting. It has toms, it has high frequency elements in it, so it covers the entire spectrum. and it sounds experimental. It doesn't sound like the rest of the percussion that we already have, which is more organic based, conga, bongo. So what I'll do is I'll just delete everything else, keep this one, and now I will find a way to mangle the sound in a way that still gives it my own unique touch. Because at the end of the day, we want to make this whole process fun. How do we make this more fun? A plugin that I've used a lot during the creation of this particular sound pack is called Buffer Shuffler, which is a Max for Live that is included in one of Ableton Live's Suites versions. I'll make sure to link it down below. This isn't necessary, but it's really fun device and it allows you to come up with interesting results in an interesting way. I'll show you in a second. So we'll solo this layer for now. And right now it's not changing anything because it's on its default setting. Let's change the steps to 16. So we get these 16th notes, and this allows us to gate the individual notes so we can mute individual steps here. So we have a bit more control over the spacing and the call and response, or the phrasing, better said. We can also enable the pitch layer over here and add maybe some pitch variation. Let's see how this sounds with the rest of the groove. Yeah, the pitching doesn't always sound good. I don't feel like it really adds value here. So I'll try the shift. I think this is a frequency shifter. Too much. Yeah, it's also not doing too much. Maybe just a few stutters, like these glitch effects. Let's see how this sounds. Adds a bit of a synthetic vibe to the groove. Yeah, it's okay. Honestly, I don't feel like this time it's doing that much because the groove is already very chopped up. I'm gonna try a different plugin. Maybe effects fragments or motions. Motions I think is very nice. It's by Arturia. It's a movement-based effects plugin. See if we can get some interesting results out of this, man. And as a matter of fact, how about we create a new audio track? I'll hit Command T. In this audio track, I will select track 13 as the input. Make sure that it's post mixer, so whatever comes out of the mixer is being routed into track 14. I will record on this track, and I will now hit record on the first cell over here. So this allows me to tweak parameters and record whatever I tweak along the way. Maybe amongst all the dirt, there might be one or two sounds that fit well. Scroll through presets. Literally just scrolling through presets here. You can of course still tweak some parameters over here. And this allows you to also get to know your plugins. See what gives you what. Weird. I like this preset. Okay. All right. Enough experimentation here. Let's delete this. And now let's see what we've recorded. So I will mute the track 13 now. I'll pull this to the front and I'll call this one Resampled. So this allows me to now double click the percussion. Oh, I see it's very quiet, so I'll tune it up a bit. And I will just listen to the take, listen to what we've just recorded, and see if there's a particular part that I maybe want to loop or that I want to chop out. Let's see. Let's just hit play for now and see what we've got. Interesting. We got some friggin' hi-hats here too, which I kind of like. So I'll click on the cell and I'll hit Command D so it duplicates that into a new layer. I'll hit play here. And I'll see if I can grab that little hi-hat phrase here. Just loop it up. Select a certain snippet and hit Command L. Sure, let's keep that for later. Let's call it hat. Let's go back to the first clip, hit play. Yo, like tiny stuff like this you could even use as effects for later with a ton of reverb delay as like a transition sound. It's a fun way to repurpose your elements here using this resampling strategy. Keep on searching though. Oh, I like this. Even though it's really tiny and barely audible, I like what I hear here. So let's take this tiny snippet. I don't know what we need to loop up. Let's loop up this entire section. Hit Command L. This part is too loud. This is very quiet. So let's change that. Let's click on the gain over here. Let's go into envelopes. And now let's reduce the total amount of gain on this hit here. And now let's increase the total amount of gain here. Okay, I like it. I like it. It might be a bit too repetitive, but it's okay. Let's call this one glitch. I'm going to rename it here. Command R is the command for rename, by the way. So we got some hats. We got some glitchy, weird percussion phrasing. Let's duplicate this once more and see if we can continue to extract maybe a bit more value from this resampled groove. So let's hit play. Let's delete the entire automation here. And let's continue to scroll through the groove here. Okay, so we got the second clip playing. Like straight out of the box. I didn't even go too far and we already got something nice here. Again, still huge difference in volume over here, so I could do it manually again. Click on the gain over here and create a few automation points like this. So that hit isn't too loud, but the rest is continued to be loud. Yeah, that is just freaking dope, dude, honestly. I have an idea. How about we take this entire phrase and also reduce the volume on this hit here. We go like this. So it plays kind of like A and B. We get a slightly longer phrase here. Nice. Let's maybe reduce the volume here. It's too loud. Also reduce the volume on that little glitch at the end. That is just so awesome sounding, dude. Holy moly. So we'll call this main phrase. I'll drag whatever we got here down low. Reduce the size of this panel. And I'm going to duplicate this entire resample track just so we keep the hats here. This we can keep for later, so I'll drag it down here. We got some hats. Let's call this one hats. Hit play. Interesting. Like, how did we get hats out of this, dude? So cool. Anyway, let's go into the EQ. Hats don't need any low end, so I'll just take it out using the equalizer here. Okay. Double click the clip, make sure that fade is enabled so we don't get any clicks when the loop is re-triggered. Interesting. Why not? Let's call it hats. Hats for later. Maybe we can use this as like an energy hats layer in the arrangement phase. And we got the resampled perk. So all of this top end stuff is going into the group. Fidelity, just drag it into the group like this. So it becomes part of the total tops group, yeah? What do we have here? Oh, this was the original layer. So I don't know if I'm going to use this. Yeah, let's delete it. We already resampled that into some interesting perky stuff. So if I solo the tops now, and if I disable the fidelity, the resampled perk, and the hats, all the stuff that we just created now, it sounds good, but it sounds like a default top loop. Like there's not a lot of uniqueness to this loop. However, if we blend in all these little detaily stuff, there's just an extra layer of depth to the groove. Just makes it a bit more interesting, you know? So it's those percussions that just add, whoa. It's the percussion that adds value to a foundation that is already strong enough on its own. It sounds good on its own, but now we're just adding that extra little bit of spice to the groove, you know? Yeah, and another great way to come up with percussion grooves, and something that my YouTube channel is strongly based on, is to just generate results from these sequencers, Max for Live devices. One of my personal favorites to use is the Rozzer Advanced Step Sequencer V2. This is a Max for Live device, which is available for Ableton Live Suite, and it's free, which is, for me, crazy. Like, the fact that this type of a device is free is unimaginable. We can, just drop it into a MIDI track. This is just going to be a quick X course here, yeah? And we can look for percussion samples. We can also go into our entire library. So percussion, maybe go into another sample pack. I don't know. Sample Market has some decent packs. Like they do a lot of great minimal stuff. I think we can get some nice stuff here. Yeah, like this is the stuff that I love. Like these weird percussion phrases. You can use them in so many interesting ways. I can just hear so much value in these grooves, man. Also, this is just freaking perfect. Take it, put it into where it says drop instrument here. Put it into slice mode. Decrease the sensitivity, so it distributes the slices across the entire sample. You can see it's slicing by transient right now. And now you want to increase the fade out time so it doesn't click. And right now it'll just be triggering one note, as you can see here. So let's solo this. Yeah, it's triggering the very first note. However, we can draw in some randomness here. Holy moly. And if we blend that in with the rest, it's overpowered. It's overpowered. It's really lovely, man. And the cool thing about this is that you can also randomize all parameters here. But what do we have? Like, we can randomize the notes. These are the little blue dots. We can randomize the octaves, which is this guy over here. Not really too useful, in my opinion, for these percussion slicing things. It's more useful for melodies. We can randomize the velocity, which is this guy over here. Velocity, which basically dictates how hard the notes are played. And we can randomize the gate, which determines the on-off of that particular note. Or you could randomize all. So let's just randomize everything. I think this sounds amazing. So you know what? Let's freaking use that, dude. Let's create a new audio track next to this one. Let's go into audio from track 15. Let's keep it on post mixer, record arm, and just hit record. Okay, I can see that again, the recording is very quiet, so I'll just boost the volume here. Delete the clip and start again. Yeah, that's enough. And what I love about Ableton Live is that it automatically snaps the loop according to these bars. So we have a total of 4 bars here. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that little snippet at the end, it automatically chopped it up, so it makes sense. We can delete the original step sequencer layer as we're not using it now. And we'll call this one Perk Energy. And again, I'll put this into my group. Also rename the clip Perk Energy so I know what is what. I will now add a bit of room reverb to the sample. Take away the low end because I don't want it messing with my sub bass. Dial it down a bit here. I want to experiment with this groove a little more. You know, I'm going to take my time, have some fun. I feel like I don't need any more percussion though, because it's already getting a bit out of hand. It's still fun. Like if you want to keep on going, keep on going. You could still export the sounds and use them in a different session or something like that. That's usually also how my sound packs come about, by the way. I just start resampling percussion. I'm like, oh, this sounds good. And I keep on going. And then from that, somehow a sample pack idea emerges, similar to what happened with Prog Organica over here. But yeah, let's mess around with this particular percussion phrase a bit. I want to add some reverb to it. So speaking of reverb, you see these send tracks over here, or these returns, better said. That's where I put my effects, like reverb and delay. Reverb and delay are send effects, which you usually want to put on separate channels like this. I have a video where I explain how this works. I'll just put it down in the description below of this particular chapter. But if you want to create one, you hit Command Option T. I think on Windows it's Control Alt T. Just check the commands, and then you get a return track. I'll put a reverb that I really love for drums on this channel. Alternatively, you can use Valhalla Room. Valhalla has some really great reverbs. And I'll put it onto 100% mix, 100% wet, because we want only the wet signal to be returned, which is why they're called return tracks. And I'm going to send Perk Energy into return track A. And I always make sure that my sends are on post mixer. Now let's solo the Perk Energy track. And you already hear that we're getting some reverb on those percussions. Let's see how it sounds with the rest of the groove. Okay, maybe a bit too much decay, so let's dial it down a bit. I don't know if airy is the right algorithm. It's mostly good for vocals. Cosmic is great for like these spacey synths, and then you got grounded, which is also cool for drums. Yeah, I usually also mess around with these parameters. Pre-delay is quite interesting because it allows the reverb to come in a bit later. So imagine the sound plays, you have a delay, and then the reverb comes, which is great for drums. But it kind of gives it this reverb slap effect, like da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. It's great for sound design purposes too, isn't it? Yeah, let's go back into airy though. I think this was great. And one of the great benefits of having your reverbs on return tracks is that you can process them separately. So you can put an EQ here, mixing EQ, and take out all the low end on just the reverb. Not the original dry signal, which is the Perk Energy, but on the reverb itself. Or also high cut it. Yeah. Maybe send it a little less into the Raum reverb. This is like the dry wet. Yeah, I like it. Awesome. And you can also test sending in other tracks into this reverb, see how it glues together. Why not? This is cool. Maybe we could use this for like a build-up. Add the hi-hats to the reverb. Hi-hats into a reverb, it always adds tension for some reason. Like, look how this sounds. On track B or C, I have Black Hole, which is like a massive, massive reverb for build-ups. Oh, excuse me, it was C. It's like a riser. Yeah, so send and return tracks, really, really efficient for not only mixing, using reverb and delay, but also creating these build-ups. You can basically send individual tracks into these returns and get a nice reverb swell. I'll tune down the perk energy a bit here. Let's mix the percussions in a bit, and I'll give them all the same color. So assign track color to group tracks and clips. Sounds amazing. Yeah, and man, just feel free to mess around. Honestly, just drag and drop samples, see how they sound, mangle them around, and have some frickin' fun. Don't forget to have fun.